Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for MacBreak Weekly is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 264, recorded September 13th, 2011. Show me the Monet. MacBreak Weekly is brought to you by GoToMeeting, the easiest, most reliable online meeting service for your free 30-day trial. Visit gotomeeting.com. Use the promo code MacBreak. And by FreshBooks, the easy online invoicing service that gets you paid quickly and makes you look more professional. Get started with a free package at freshbooks.com. And by Audible. To download a free audiobook of your choice, go to audible.com/MacBreak. It's time for our MacBreak Weekly, episode H.264. And joining us today, I guess Alex Lindsay is once again on the road. That man travels more, I tell you. But fortunately, we've got our buddy here. Alex has, in fact, takes two to replace Alex Lindsay. But first, let me launch Windows. Busted! We'll talk about why I'm launching Windows in a second. But first, say hello to Andy Ihnatko of the Chicago Sun-Times and the celestial waste of bandwidth. Hello, Andrew.
Hello, Leo. Hello, everybody else. It's really quite wonderful to be here, and I'm glad to be talking to you right now, especially you, listeners by the podcast and the live stream. This is all about you.
Andrew is back home. The power is back, and I presume the freezer is loaded with Papa John's pizzas.
Okay, well, I wish I could pretend that was not the first thing I went out and bought. Yeah, there's like I've actually it's sort of like when I buy a new laptop. It's like I don't want to just do the migration because there's a lot of old stuff there that was probably I shouldn't have had in there to begin with. So literally, it's a 3-week stage where stage 1 was yes, I bought a 12-pack of soda, 4 frozen pizzas,
hey,
and eggs and milk. This week is I replace all like the frozen vegetables and the frozen stuff. Next week I can finally buy like fresh fruit and vegetables.
You gotta have priorities in life. That's all.
Yeah, and it was nice to find that my sister got me one of those like cheese balls with the nuts packed around it for Christmas about 2 years ago. So it's probably a good idea to get rid of that anyway. So. Now
2-year-old cheese balls.
It's good. Exactly.
Cheese logs.
I think it just shows you how much I love my sister that I wanted to hold on to that for so long.
I can't eat it. It's from Sis.
Exactly.
Also with us,
a good gift back to hers.
From Liverpool, Mr. Don McAllister of Screencasts Online. Great to have you, Don, once again.
Hello, Leo. Hi, how are you doing?
Look at that great picture.
Is that good?
What kind of...
and by the way, thanks so much for inviting me on episode H.264 being a video. That's fantastic. I hadn't realized till you mentioned it, but I thought, that's good.
What kind of camera are you using? Because that really looks fantastic.
It's just one of these Panasonic. No, it's not a Panasonic. It's a Sony with a HDMI out. So I've just plugged that
no wonder it looks so good.
Matrox MXO2 capture box and then plugged that into Skype, and it seems to work fine.
Yeah.
I haven't got my usual pink color, which I have with the other webcam that I normally use.
Yeah,
but,
it's fantastic. You actually look better than Andy, and you're thousands of miles further away.
Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it? That I don't know about looking better than Andy, but you know.
Also here, it's great to have from Big Nerd Ranch, Aaron Hillegas is here. He is the author of a number of great books on iOS and Cocoa programming, but also runs perhaps the best training in writing software for iOS and Macintosh. And Windows too, I think, yes?
We haven't done any Windows yet.
Not yet?
We do
Android it is.
We do a lot of Android work. We do a lot of iPhone work.
And you were regaling the audience before I got here, which is great, with stories of C, Objective-C,
well,
Xcode.
I'm working on a new book. It's a for beginners book, and it assumes you know nothing.
Oh, that's great.
And a lot of it is about how to think like a programmer. So we talk a lot about memory and addresses and the heap and the stack.
Great.
And so someone on the chat room was asking about it. So that's Objective-C, the Big Nerd Ranch Guide. It's coming out soon.
The best hobby ever,
definitely,
I think, is computer programming.
Definitely.
And I have a lot of hobbies, photography, ham radio, but there's something about programming because you can, everybody who watches this, I guess, probably has a computing device that you can program on. And so it's just fun to have that kind of control and that software control of total ultimate control of what's going on in there is fantastic.
It's really empowering.
And you learn so much about how things work.
Of course, the downside is that you start running a program for everything. Like you find yourself doing anything repetitive, like, oh, I'll just write a script to do that. And what would have been a 15-minute job if you had just done it with an editor now becomes a 3-month project. Forever
and ever. I'm going to move that mic real close to you because you're taller than most people in the studio, and so I have to aim it at you.
All right.
iPhone news tops the list today. The latest is that iOS 5, the prediction goes, will be released to developers 10 days from now, on the 23rd. I'm sorry, released to OEMs. It's been out for developers. We're at version 7, I think, right? And beta 7.
iOS 5?
iOS 5, beta 7.
Yes, it's been released to
And the rumor is that the Gold Master will be out on the 23rd. That's the one that you can actually put on a phone.
I can't talk anything specific about iOS 5, but I love it.
Oh, you're NDA'd. That's right.
I am NDA'd.
That's the real catch. You know, I could spend $99 and get access to the iOS betas.
And then you couldn't talk about it.
Then I wouldn't be able to say anything. So we have people like you to break your NDAs.
There's so much, though, isn't there, on the web that it's fairly easy to keep track of what's going on with iOS 5. But it's interesting with the timescales for this release, though, because again, Apple are trying to juggle different things. They're juggling their infrastructure. They're juggling the iPhone 5. They're juggling iOS 5. They're also juggling iCloud as well, which I understand if I wasn't covered by NDA and could talk about it, that they've actually now wrapped up iCloud into 10.7.2. So, they're having to coordinate all this activity together to launch everything at the same time.
So if that rumor is correct, and that sounds right, 23rd would mean they'd be able to start putting them on phones right away, and then it takes 10 days to 14 days to get them into the store. So we're talking roughly mid-October for an iPhone 5 ship.
That's the rumor.
Sound good? Everybody feel comfortable with that?
Let's go with that one.
All right. Assuming we're going to call it the iPhone 5, yes.
And we don't know, right? It might be the 4S. Might be the iPhone Jiggly Box. We don't know.
Could be the iPhone Tim Cook Rocks model.
We'll just call it
Showing
iPhone
that the
TCR.
power even goes to his head.
Sprint may even get the iPhone. Bloomberg is saying, this is, I think, a great rumor. In fact, one that I kind of makes me salivate a little bit. Sprint might be offering an iPhone 5, whatever it is, because we'll have Verizon, AT&T, Sprint. And Sprint might be the one to have an unlimited data plan. At least that's what Bloomberg is saying. Does that seem possible?
It does seem possible. I mean, it was
Sprint's kind of a way back in the pack also, Ren, so they need to be competitive, right? Why would you buy a Sprint iPhone unless there was something special about it?
And that's always how they've
had
been
unlimited data plans to begin with, and they phased those out. And now Sprint's coming and saying, hey, you can still get an unlimited data plan with us.
I also noticed we're seeing a lot of ads. I saw on the Monday Night Football last night, AT&T ads several times pointing out that AT&T is the only service you can make a phone call and get data. You know that guy changing his baby's diaper, checking the football, which I thought was incredibly stupid. But it made that point, and you can't on Sprint either. CDMA, which is Sprint and Verizon, both disallow data during a phone call. So it's interesting that AT&T is starting to push that. That sounds to me like they want to be your iPhone choice. Right, Andy?
Yeah, well, they've always taken that position going all the way back to Verizon. There's just so little to differentiate the two. That's really the only feature that you could say, well, the AT&T phone does this, the Verizon iPhone does not. And I think anything that AT&T can do to get people not to really look at the quality of the two different networks is probably a really good strategy for AT&T to follow, because that has always been my biggest differentiator between the two. Verizon historically has always had a stronger, more reliable and faster network than AT&T. Right. They're certainly a lot more aggressive with their 4G network rollout than AT&T has been. So if there is, I think in 2012, a 4G compatible iPhone, that's going to be a huge leg up that Verizon would have over AT&T, unless AT&T does something miraculous between now and January, February, or March. So really, that's really all they have to push right now.
Dr. Mom in our chat room says, you know what would be so special about it? Sprint's data and phones are so underutilized, you'd actually be able to make a call. It does. Yeah, Sprint has a great data network. I have to say, the 4G network is really good.
But
if you can get it.
Exactly. That's exactly right. If it's not a problem when you're in a big metro area, it's even not a problem when you're in sort of a renowned suburb. But it comes down to that. It really, no, seriously, it comes down to the point where you're streaming Pandora, you're driving from point A to point B, right, and then suddenly the signal drops out. Which is something that happens on the weaker networks like T-Mobile or Sprint. Whereas on Verizon is so good that when I broke down in the middle of absolutely nowhere by the side of the road, I had 2 different phones with me, but the Verizon phone was able to let me call AAA. Even the AT&T phone said, sorry, we didn't plan on anybody basically stopping here on the side of I-95 and for a picnic.
That's why I tell Lisa I have to have one of each. It's just in case I break down, I have to have AT&T, yep, Verizon, Sprint, and T-Mobile. Just in case.
Just in case.
Don, are there unlimited data plans in the UK, or is that also a thing of the past?
Yeah, they're starting to wind them down. There are a couple left, I think. But, I mean, it's great to offer an unlimited data plan. It's a great marketing tool. But whether anyone actually needs them these days is a bit of a moot point. I think my main interest with the launch of the next iPhone is the international aspect of it. Will they launch in several countries? They seem to have done over the past couple of launches for various things, but they're sailing a bit close to the wind with it being so close to Christmas that I do hope they are able to at least launch it in all their primary markets simultaneously rather than having us to wait till a couple of months after it's relaunched in the US.
You have it. You have what? Orange? You have...
there's Orange, O2. O2 were the main ones. O2 were the primary carriers first, but then everyone else has sort of come on board ever since. And you can get iPhone plans and iPhones now from basically anybody in the UK, including like the major supermarkets who have their own branded version of a carrier. You can get Tesco, which is a huge supermarket here in the UK. You can actually buy phones and get data plans and everything from
Can you
Tesco.
get an iPhone from Tesco?
Oh yeah. You can get the whole range. They've actually got the whole range of Mac laptops, desktops, the whole works. Even the wireless devices as well, the AirPods, etc. Actually, I think that's only in the like really big stores, but their online service you can actually definitely buy literally everything in the Apple range from Tesco.
That's amazing.
Yeah, get Tesco points, and they have a big loyalty scheme, so you can buy all your gear, all your Apple gear, and get thousands of Tesco points if you want to.
We need a Tesco. Here in
well,
the
they're
States.
all over the place. They're in China now, I believe, as well. Tesco.
Oh.
Very big.
Foxconn building 150,000 iPhone next gen. What are we going to call it? Next gen. Next gen iPhones a day. 150,000 a day. Apple predicting, of course, huge demand. Will we see lines? Will we see shortages? Will we be able to? Should I wait and should I put my chair in line at AT&T soon? Or because is it available everywhere? Predictions. Will there be riots?
My prediction is that there just aren't that many killer features left to go into the phone, and people aren't going to be that interested. There may be a price drop, there may be a couple of new features, but it's not going to be riot-worthy at all.
We're now at the stage where you wait till your contract runs before you get your next phone.
Exactly.
In fact, I just saw an article that said people are still very happy with the iPhone 5. They don't feel a need for a new phone at all. I think that's probably the case. Although I have to say there's some Apple fanatics, most of whom are fans of this show, who will be waiting in line. Everybody who listens to this show will be waiting
We're talking a very small riot.
It's a tiny riot.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of pent-up demand, though. So I'm sure, I mean, there's always going to be a line anyway. It depends how big the line's going to be. And I think people are now getting used to the fact and sort of working out, well, actually, because the supply is so good now, Usually, I don't have to get in line to actually get something. I don't have to queue in line for 6 or 7 hours to actually get one. There's normally a supply for the first couple of days. So that might put a lot of people off. But you're certainly going to see lines on launch, I would think almost definitely.
New features. We've already talked about this. A5, obviously, the dual-core processor that's in the iPad. But here's a picture of sushi that tells us a little bit about the iPhone next gen's camera. Dun dun dun. What can we deduce from this, Andy Ihnatko?
I actually saw some conversation on a message board comparing that sushi to the kind of sushi that is available in the Apple campus cafeteria, just to see it. Yes, you see, because that's sort of like you see how they slice the ginger. They only slice it that way in the
very Apple-y, the way the ginger and wasabi are touching, but not intermingled. And you see here, this is urchin, sea urchin roe. I found out. I thought it was hummus.
Have you ever had that?
No, is it good?
Oh, it's awful. It's like eating out of a baby diaper.
It looks like eating out of a baby diaper.
Yeah. So there's XF information that's attached to the photo that makes people think that this might be an iPhone 5 photo, but of course you can edit XF information. The people who are saying that, well, it's low resolution, we'd expect to see an 8-megapixel camera taking this picture, but you can always just simply change the resolution. So it's just another thing to click on and look at and think about and go, as a reason for not starting work at 9 o'clock as you're supposed to, but starting at 9:15, 9:20.
That's why I was late today. I was parsing the EXIF data on this. So according to the EXIF data, which Andy rightly points out could be modified, this was posted on Flickr inadvertently by a person believed to be an Apple engineer. It was quickly moved to private. However, people captured it, of course. A couple of things to point out that, again, are speculative because the EXIF could be edited, although I have to say I think this is unlikely. One, the GPS coordinates were, in fact, one infinite loop. Two, they do have sushi at the Apple lunch facility. Three, while this is clearly cropped because you see it's a square aspect ratio, the native resolution of this was in fact an 8-megapixel camera. The f-stop was, I'm trying to remember, I think it was 2.2 compared to the 2.4. The angle was a little less wide, or was it more wide? Oh, man, now I'm forgetting all my facts. I had them. I memorized everything here.
And there was a man by the side of the road who opened an umbrella right before the motorcade came in, despite the fact that it was a sunny day in Dallas that day.
That's right, exactly. However, a couple of things have been deduced from this. One is that this could very well be the 8-megapixel Sony camera that President Howard Stringer was trumpeting as Apple purchasing. This was months ago. They're going to be using our latest camera. He doesn't talk like that. He is British, however. So maybe I should have had Don do that one. Anyway, also, though, it could be another chip which Apple uses. Was it the OmniVision? Something like that. Anyway, that's all we can deduce from this plate of sushi. Am I correct, sir?
I would say so. I mean, it's a nice picture. It's a nice, maybe hungry to go to the supermarket.
Clear.
Supermarket has nice sushi, and maybe go and buy the California roll with the extra ginger, but that was about it. It's
a fairly crisp picture. However, as some have pointed out, not remarkably better than the 5-megapixel iPhone 4 camera.
Yeah, the thing is, though, with the iPhone 4, I mean, I just went away for a weekend over to Paris and did the usual touristy bits, and I just took my iPhone 4 with me. I didn't want to take any other cameras. I'm not a big camera guy, but the pictures were fantastic. I was really pleased. So even if it's just a slight incremental update to the camera, that's going to please me no end, because the iPhone 4 camera is perfectly adequate for these snaps that I take, and they literally are snaps, but they're great.
I think those are the only two things that they can really upgrade at this point. They can upgrade the camera, they can upgrade the data speed. Anything else they add to the iPhone at this point isn't going to have that sort of immediate sort of gut checking. Ooh, I know it'll cost me extra $100 to get on my contract, but $100, I've got $100 I will make in the future. I want this iPhone.
Let's see, it's the same resolution as the Sony Exmor-R sensor, their 8-megapixel sensor, and OmniVision's 8-megapixel sensor. This is actually some really good reportage from Ars Technica, as is always to be expected. The lens is f2.4. That's a little better than the f2.8 of the iPhone 4. The focal length, 4.28 millimeters, compared to the iPhone 4's 3.85 millimeters. That's the equivalent on this size sensor of about 33 millimeters, which is a little bit less wide than the 28 millimeter equivalents on the iPhone 5. So let me get those all straight. But as Andy points out, it's all mere guesswork at this point.
Yeah.
But it's important. I think it's important, and we talked about this on Twitter. It's important because as this camera gets incrementally better, it means fewer and fewer people are going to buy pocket cameras. That this becomes effectively your camera.
Yeah, and it's also an easy differentiator for Apple between their models and the Android phones. That Android phones are becoming better and better and better, and it's just almost at the exact same level as the iPhone is right now. So if there's one feature that can really dump a lot of R&D and something that two people with two phones will come home with two completely different experiences, it is the camera. I've got the Droid Bionic in for testing. And
how do you like that?
I like it. I like the speed. I like the screen. What I don't like is what Motorola tends to do. Motorola and Verizon tend to do to Android when they turn it into a Droid phone. Yeah. But my usual test suite, whether it's a camera or a phone, is Bates Hall, that really immensely cool research hall library at Boston Public Library. There's a tile on the marble floor that has a crack in it. That's perfect mark. I always put my heels on that exact same mark, take the exact same picture. Took pictures with the Bionic, with the iPhone 4, and with just a regular still camera for comparison. Absolutely no comparison, not only because of the software that was running on the iPhone was so much easier to use than the camera app that you get with the Bionic, but the Bionic was stupid enough to say, I think I'll give them a nice long exposure here because I don't know how to deal with this. So it was kind of blurry and scratchy and really an unusable picture. Whereas the iPhone,
have you posted these on Flickr yet, or I'm looking at older pictures now? Oh, you're looking at older pictures. If you go to the BPL library, you might find one of these shots. Okay.
But there's also, or it might be tagged Bates Hall. Usually I tag them based on like product reviews. I haven't posted the Bionic shots yet. Okay. I might actually, just to be fair, I might have to go back and reshoot it because I don't know. It's definitely a data point to say that it selected the combination of exposure settings that would result in a shaky handheld image, whereas the iPhone 4 has never had any kind of problem with that. Yeah. But it's also probably good to say, I know this is going to screw it up, so I'm going to make this as solid as possible, so at least people can say when it doesn't select a stupid slow shutter speed, here's how much noise comes in, and here's how it deals with the balance of lighting. I've yet to see a single phone that can come anywhere near to how the iPhone can handle any situation. It's like what Don said. It really is a credible camera in and of itself. I'm not sure if I'd be so bold as to say I'm going to one of the iconic photo cities in the entire world. I'm not going to take a real camera with me. But if time and time again, when I'm in a position where I didn't think I'd need my camera, but I want to take a good picture, it's shocking the quality of the pictures you can take with it.
Yeah,
and the thing is as well, though, it's also not just the optics; it's the software as well, and the responsiveness of the camera. And of course, with iOS 5, again, it's no secret to know that they've actually now switched on the functionality whereby you can use one of the volume controls to actually act as a shutter button, and also you've got the immediate access to the camera, even if your phone is locked, so you don't have to unlock your phone to actually get to the camera. And they're just two minor points. We've yet still to see when they're going to do anything else with the HDR and stuff in there. But there's so many good HDR apps for the... I mean, while I was in Paris, I took some fantastic HDR photographs using HDR Pro, I think it was one of the applications. Absolutely superb, fantastic quality. And, you know, it's not just the optics, it's what the camera does with the image as well once it's been captured and processed.
That's where they have a real head start. There are Android apps, and some of the iconic iPhone apps have been moved over to Android, but still, things like Camera Plus, the things that people really love, are iPhone only. It really dominates in terms of a range of software available for this. Did you post those? Have you posted those? I'm looking at your Flickr here. Have you posted those on Flickr?
I did. Where did I post them? I posted one on Google Plus.
Another Google Pluser.
Monet's garden. I took a picture of, Monet the painter. He has
you went to Giverny?
Yeah, so I went to his house and took some photos, and I took one particular one using the HDR Pro, and I was so delighted with it. I posted that up on Google Plus.
I think I'm not following you on Google Plus. Is that possible? Let's go there and find out.
So I'm not offended. It's okay.
Well, it's a total oversight because I'm there. Look at that.
There we go.
This is done with the iPhone 4.
That was the iPhone 4 handheld shot using. I think
Holy
I used
cow!
Yeah, fantastic.
I mean, the clarity and detail, even of the people in the distance on Monet's bridge, the Japanese bridge, are just amazing.
Leo, I've just sent you that photo.
Oh, good. Thank you, Andy. Thank you. I'll take a look at it. Well, anyway, I think there's no question that Apple will absolutely pay attention to the camera on the iPhone 4 Next Gen, or whatever we call it. We're going to take a break, come back with more. Aaron Hilligas is here from Big Nerd Ranch without his cowboy hat. You might not have recognized him. I didn't even know you had all that hair there.
Oh, yeah. Still for a while longer.
The hat hasn't caused it all to fall out, apparently. Aaron does great iPhone training at Big Nerd Ranch. iPhone, iOS, and Cocoa training. In fact, you really started with Cocoa training, now Android training as well. I always wanted to do the Cocoa workshop. I have your Cocoa book, and I love it. In fact, thanks to you, I have the new iOS book, which is also great.
I need to get you a copy of our advanced macOS 10 programming.
Oh, yeah, someday. I'm not quite advanced yet. Don McAllister, also from Screencasts Online, a great place to learn software. Screencastsonline.com. And, of course, Andy Anako from the Chicago Sun-Times. Our show today brought to you by our friends at Citrix, makers of GoToMeeting, now with HD Faces. I have to tell you, GoToMeeting for a long time has been the way we have held meetings. First of all, it's very easy to set up. You just click a link, and it sends out an email. It adds an invitation to people's calendars. It gives them a link they can click to go to the meeting, see your screen. So if you're doing a sales presentation or whatever, and even if they don't have it installed, actually, especially if they don't have it installed, GoToMeeting is a great solution because they click the link. It says, we're going to install the software. You allow it because it's a little Java. In 30 seconds, it's very quick. It's installed, and there it is. It's working. They're seeing your screen, and now they're seeing you, and you're seeing them. And I have to tell you, HD Faces makes a huge difference in the quality of your meetings, to see the reactions people have, whether they're nodding or frowning, whether their arms are folded or they're open. It just makes a big difference in terms of sales, collaboration, training, preparation. I've used it for rehearsals. We use it all the time for meetings. So here's how you can try it free right now. Visit GoToMeeting.com, click the orange Try It Free button, and when they ask you for the offer code, please use MacBreak as your offer code. GoToMeeting.com, Try It Free button, MacBreak is the offer code. And then if you want, just to get an idea, take a look at the video they've got on that page that demonstrates HD Faces. The quality is this good. It is really good. If your meetees have webcams and internet access, and if they're in the office, usually they have great bandwidth. It just is incredible. Up to 6 people on this page in the meeting. You're seeing them. You can rearrange the screen and the photo images, the video images, so that you can make it convenient. Of course, you can zoom the screen out and so forth. And it's so easy to do. They don't even need to do a phone call. They can just use VoIP built into GoToMeeting to do this. You can see it's just the best way to meet. GoToMeeting.com. Use the offer code MacBreak to try it free for 30 days. And we thank Citrix, those great folks at Citrix, for their support of all of our shows. Really are good friends and good company and good fellas to be partnered with. Moving along, we mentioned briefly that the Build conference is going on right now. I know this is MacBreak Weekly, but Microsoft is taking the covers off of the next version of Windows, Windows 8. At least that's the code name it's been so far. We don't know what the final name would be. And I'm told that this afternoon they will hand out the Windows Developer Preview to all of the attendees. These are hardware, software developers who are working on Windows. And Andy, you watched the keynote, I know.
Yeah.
It's clearly they're heavily influenced by the iPad.
Yes and no. It's what I really like about what they've done with Windows 8 is that they've been influenced in the sense that they said that, you know what, that instant on thing, that works great. We should try that. You know what, multi-touch everywhere, that's great. We should try that. And nonetheless, though, they have gone and they said an app store in which things are sort of sandbox and things are designed so that they've been checked out and consumers can really trust them. Also, great idea. We should totally do that. But they are going one. I'm not going to go so far as to say one step further, but they're using that to sort of fuel what I think are their own ideas on what a next generation operating system should look like, because it's just as significant from all the deviations they've made. Chief among them, the idea that we are not going to have a separate a separate tablet operating system separate from our desktop operating system. What we're going to have is a way to articulate a really cool multi-touch experience when it's appropriate for the user to have a multi-touch experience, but it's going to work alongside a conventional desktop experience. So as a result, you can have a very like iPad-looking slim little tablet that looks slick as anything. I love the Metro interface, but nonetheless, it's still running Windows underneath it, so that if you come home and you attach a keyboard and a mouse to it, it will behave like a regular desktop because it's just an AMD-based or Intel-based processor.
Or ARM-based, apparently. That's
I'm sorry.
They're going to do AMD, Intel, and ARM. Yeah,
exactly. So, that's possible now, maybe, to have the best of all three worlds.
Right.
Apple's traditional explanation has been that, well, you can't really take a desktop operating system and make it mobile because it makes too many power demands. It won't run if you use a cheap processor that will run in low power mode, it won't be powerful enough to run real apps, so it's best to have two separate entities. The hardware that they showed off today, which ranged from a 2-year-old netbook running Windows 8 all the way up to huge, like Golgotha-shaped machines with water-cooled tower with 840 mega giga teraflops that becomes self-aware 3 seconds after you turn it on, all running the same operating system. The question is going to be, though, is they all looked great. They looked smooth. They looked interactive. They looked so good that I really can't wait to get my hands on actual functioning hardware to see how well it works. But the real question is, if you're running Windows 8 on a little $400, $500 tablet, will it run as well as this dedicated mobile-only operating system runs on the iPad? Right. So there's, and also I got to say that
I think you could say safely that it will not. I mean, the iPad software is so finely tuned for that specific thing, and you can't write general-purpose software and glom it onto that hardware.
Well, you can't.
Can you?
It's possible that you can. I think I'm not realize that right now. All we're looking at is the very first developer preview. Right. This is the first time in which people can actually start writing apps for it. So we're not anywhere close to a consumer release yet. Right. But the demo they gave was all live fire demos. It all looked really, really good. And remember that the one advantage that the PC marketplace has always had is the ability to make dirt cheap hardware. So if there is any company that can make a decent $500 tablet, I think it is this Windows community. And remember, that's just the tip of the iceberg. They have so many really cool ideas here. One idea that I absolutely, I'll talk about two ideas I really, really love about it. One is that you have apps that can articulate themselves in multiple different ways depending on the situation. So you don't have a start bar anymore. You have a start screen, and your apps that you're running and the apps that are still dormant can actually just be little tiles that do nothing more than kind of like how apps in the dock can badge themselves to say, oh, by the way, you've got 41 emails waiting for you. Only can be a lot more complicated in the sort of stuff they can show you. You tap it and it becomes a full screen app, and that works great. Or if you want to watch a movie but you want to keep an eye on what's going on in your mailbox, you can actually re-articulate the email app as just a little sidebar app that just kind of like a mobile phone app that's just one big column in the side. So you can actually have more than one app running at the same time, but in a way that makes sense for mobile. And the other thing, which I don't know how well it's going to work out. It works great in a demo, but I'm not sure how well it's going to work when you get millions of developers on this. One point they came back to time and time again, as frequently as they were talking about the idea of having multi-touch and having these nice little tiled interfaces, is the idea of having all apps working together as one pool of functions. So, and it's such a slick concept where they have the pictures gallery, for instance. And as we all know in iOS, our pictures gallery can send things via email, via MMS, via MobileMe, and in the new operating system, it'll run via Twitter, because Apple has been kind enough to hardwire in support for these things. Because of the nature of Windows 8, if you have a Facebook client or a Twitter client or a Reddit client or anything, that app can be written with a couple of checkboxes and a few lines of code that says, oh, by the way, I am capable of accepting pictures. So if you are ever in, so Windows 8 operating system, if you're ever showing the user a big library of pictures and you want to give this person options on what to do with them, by all means, throw my app in the list of things that can toss it to. So I can be in the pictures, gallery, tap on a button, and then simply send it to my Twitter feed or send it to or post it to elsewhere, just by virtue of the fact that I happen to have another app in there. It doesn't launch the other app; it just simply embeds its import and export features into that second app. And there's so many different ways it articulates. So this is all just a demo. I'm going to be clear. It's all just a demo, but so many new generation mobile operating systems fail even at the demo stage. I keep coming back to Android, where, dang it, they just got nothing going on tablets. They can give me a 2-hour presentation, which it looks like the only message is that we don't get how people are supposed to use a tablet, in the 21st century. This is a demo that made me think, even in the middle of it, I was like following up with the contacts I've got at Microsoft saying, yeah, how soon could I get some developer hardware?
They handed out 5,000 Samsung Series 7 tablets with i5s in them to the developers there. You should have been at the Build conference, Andy.
Actually, I don't know if they gave them away. Did they give them away? Because I was listening and they said, we have 5,000 in a warehouse next door. They didn't actually mention that. But it really does come down to price. If those are tablets that are going to cost $1,200,
right?
That's kind of a problem. But if those are tablets that are going to cost $500 or $600, or if they can have an $800 tablet that won't just sort of duplicate the use of a laptop in a conceptual way. Oh, well, there's a mobile app that you can use and as a word processor kind of well enough. If it's an $800 machine that will do the work of an $800 laptop and a $500 tablet, the whole race just got really interesting, I thought.
So go ahead, go on. I have sort of a cultural question about the whole thing, and that is the one thing that we know Apple is good at, and I am not a religious zealot on the Apple versus Microsoft question, but one thing we know that Apple is good at is saying that's not something we're going to put on the device. It's not something we're going to put in the operating system. Do you think that Microsoft, feeling the heat of the Apple sales, not just on the mobile devices, but also on the desktop and laptop devices, that it has given them the fortitude to actually yank things out that are weighing it down?
No.
I'm not sure. I mean,
I'll quote Robert Scoble on this because he used to work for Microsoft. And on his Google Plus, he posted this. He said, Microsoft's most important event yet. He says when he sees people, venture capitalists and entrepreneurs, they all are carrying Macs these days. He says this is Microsoft's last chance to kind of grab this audience before it runs away. But he says Microsoft's problem, and I think he's kind of right on this, is that they take great pride in the fact that software written in 1983 will run on Windows. And that is something they're not going to leave behind. And so what Robert points out, he said, and I admire him for this, he said, demos are so easy, and Robert has been very guilty of this in the past, as have many of us. It's very easy to look at a demo and get moved and get very excited. He says, I'm going to withhold judgment on Windows 8 until I have it in my hands. I'm not going to let the demo sway me, he says. But what I fear, and I think that this is a reasonable fear given Microsoft's history, is this great gloss on top, and you dig down and there's that ugly, those ugly Windows apps, that ugly Windowsness beneath the surface. And that is going to, he says that Microsoft has to get past that. So to answer, that's the problem that they face, right?
That's absolutely true, because it was I was so with them for the first hour, and then they start digging a little bit deeper.
And it's Windows.
And they're showing, and we've redone the task manager that actually just to show, they're showing some of the low power features. That one of the things that Windows 8 does well is that it really shuts down apps that aren't doing anything or don't need the CPU, so that things come on instantly and also doesn't burn up power that it doesn't need. But also, so they're showing up that, we've also redone the task manager so that you can see percentages. And so they do some sort of button click or whatever. And now you're looking at that beautiful Metro interface in the background with this ugly Windows 7 window on the top of it.
Right.
And now they're going to sort of the more technical stuff. And now you're starting to see the start bar popping up over the Metro interface, and you're seeing, it's like, oh god, it really is like when you're at a really beautiful, elegant, expensive family wedding and there's one drunk uncle who's grabbing the microphone and trying to sing Lily Marlene. It's like,
and that's the question: can Microsoft chuck that drunk uncle?
Yeah, I think that's really
this is the problem, isn't
question.
it? Sorry, this is the problem that Microsoft have and I do feel sorry for them in this respect, in that they are making the software platform and they have little or no control over the hardware and the infrastructure. And that's where Apple really has this huge advantage, not just over Microsoft, but over everybody else, in that, they are slowly and gradually building up this entire ecosystem from mobile devices that go in your pocket, mobile devices that you use around the home, laptops, desktop machines. And they're creating all the software that run on these platforms, but they're actually creating the hardware platforms as well, and they're also doing the back-end infrastructure. And just a single software manufacturer who's just building a software platform can't really compete on that sort of level. It's not a level playing field, really. I feel
that's true. I think, Aaron, you would point out, I'm sure that Apple's been able to leave its users in the dust many times.
Definitely. They've taken away things that people thought they loved, and then after a year or so, people realized they didn't love them so much.
And they have the nerve and the guts to do that.
And they have the nerves and the guts. But Don has a good point in that graphics chips in particular, everything that happens on the iPad is optimized for the graphic chips that are in there.
Right.
Whereas with Microsoft, they have to write to everything. And by making it more agnostic about the graphics, they don't get to leverage it as far. And Android has had a terrible time with this. They've been really slow to optimize the graphics for the hardware. And you can really feel the difference when you scroll on an Android phone versus scrolling.
So
on
is
an
that to
iPhone.
Don's point, that because Android is like Microsoft, they don't control the hardware, they just control the software. So Apple's real advantage is controlling the whole thing. I mean, that was the first thing Steve Jobs did when he came back to Apple. Was he got rid of the clones. He said, "We will be the keeper of Apple hardware." Period.
And he got rid of several product lines as well. There were gazillions of different Macs at the time. He's like, no, we do 3 now. We do the top level, we do the middle, and we do the bottom.
And that's a unity of purpose and that has been an absolute through line in everything Apple's done since.
Exactly.
You know, and Andy, you say this all the time. If it doesn't fit, they're not going to do it. If it doesn't fit into this product chain, they're not going to do it.
That's part of what I think is so exciting about this. It's really from a story point of view. You don't like the story about how two people who are very, very similar and have very, very similar strengths played a game and one kind of won on points.
Right.
Two great boxers. That's kind of interesting. A boxer fighting a hockey player. That's really interesting, because that's when you start thinking about, these people have two totally different ideas on how to do a mobile operating system. I wonder which one will prove to be successful once they start putting players into the field. Although I should backtrack that on the point of graphics acceleration, they did during the keynote make a stress point that we are taking all graphics acceleration in-house. It's all being handled by the operating system in Windows 8, so that in theory, or at least the way they explained it, that whether your app is deploying on a netbook with software acceleration or the big gargantuan machine with 41 graphics cards installed, you don't have to support anything. We will handle all of that on the operating system. No details were explained, but that was one of the applause points from the 5,000 developers there.
We'll have a lot more to say about Windows 8 on Thursday. We will have Mary Jo Foley and Paul Thurrott, who are at Build, live from Build Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern for Windows Weekly, and that's where we'll really go in great depth. By then, I think they will have both played, as will their co-hosts, and I think we'll have some people from Microsoft. They will have played with Windows 8 for some time. By then, they'll have a better sense of what's going on. It's certainly, I agree with you, Andy, it's fun to watch these two slug it out. And they're coming from completely different points of strength. And so as a result, it's more than just a battle of equals. And I think I agree with you. I think it's fun.
It really is like democracy versus communism all over again. Only with a company that might actually be able to make communism work.
I'm going to ask who's who. Hey, we're going to take a break, come back with more, including the response of one Android phone maker saying, oh, iPhones aren't cool because dads use them. But we'll talk about that in just a second. First, I want to tell you how you could focus on your work and not your paperwork, how you can get paid faster with invoicing that is so fresh. I'm talking about FreshBooks.com. I'll tell you, if you are a freelancer and you have to send out invoices, I know the end of the month is painful. It always was for me. Yeah, it wasn't that it was that hard. It just wasn't fun. It wasn't interesting. And yet, that's key to getting paid. Sometimes I would just delay it, and that's not a good idea. FreshBooks turned my life around. Amber MacArthur told me about them in 2004. I started using them. Never looked back. What a great way to do your invoices. You upload your logo, so these invoices look professional. They look great. They can be emailed as well as mailed. I like that. Now, with some of my clients, I still gave them a paper invoice, and FreshBooks does that too. They'll print it, stamp it, and mail it for you for an additional fee. But for some of my clients, just the email was great, especially because the FreshBooks email has a button on it that says pay your bill now. And that means that your clients can use a credit card, they can use PayPal, they can use Authorize.net to pay that invoice immediately. You know how many people actually just do it? It's not that they don't want to pay you or they don't have the money. It's just a pain for them to pay the invoice just as it was for you to make it. This just friction-free commerce. In fact, you can even have automatic invoices sent out, which I love, and automatic payments set up. So it just happens. If they don't pay, of course, they've got great hassle-free invoice follow-up. Easy to create good-looking invoices. And if you do time and billing, if you keep track of your hours, they have an iPhone app and a web app. And the data from that, the hours that you've kept all month, automatically go right into the invoice, which makes it very, very simple. I just think you're going to love it, and I want you to take a look at it. In fact, what's great is it's free for your first 3 clients. So go to freshbooks.com, freshbooks.com. Try it absolutely free for the first 3. And, of course, you can get more, up to 25 clients for $20 a month, and on and on. It's very, very affordable. Freshbooks.com. And, yes, they're still giving away birthday cakes to MacBreak listeners. It doesn't have to be your birthday to win a cake. So every week they'll give away a free birthday cake to everybody who's signed up that week. So make sure you mention, I heard it on MacBreak Weekly, when you go to freshbooks.com. Invoicing made simple. Painless billing. For that I love them and will always love them. Like a brother. HTC, I love this, is apparently in the market to buy a new operating system. Maybe Android isn't making it for them. They make, by the way, among the best Android phones. The HTC Sensation is fantastic. It's beautiful. But HTC president, the U.S. president, Martin Fichter, was at the Mobile Future Forward conference in Seattle. He said, kids and teenagers don't want iPhones anymore because dads have them. I brought my daughter back to college. She's down in Portland at Reed, Steve Jobs' alma mater, by the way, and I talked to a few of the kids on her floor. None of them has an iPhone because they told me my dad has an iPhone. Well, this guy admittedly wants to sell more HTC phones, but they may not be running Android much longer. There's a rumor afoot that HTC might be actually going to HP and talking about picking up that WebOS. I don't know if that means they would stop making Android phones. As I said, they make some of the best. In fact, they made the first Android phone. The first Google phone, the G1, was an HTC phone. But
they make Windows phones as well. I mean, they're very agnostic.
That's a good point.
They'd be happy to put anybody's operating system on it if someone will buy it.
It wouldn't be exclusive necessarily. I'd love to see somebody who really knew how to make hardware buy WebOS. Because that's really been the problem. Well,
why?
WebOS, the pre was underpowered. Mm-hmm. Even the touchpad really felt sluggish running WebOS. If somebody made some good hardware, I thought WebOS was a very elegant operating system.
You don't think that's inherent in HTML5 and web apps in general?
I don't know. Apple runs HTML5 pretty well. I mean, you know better than I do. Do you think it's a native iOS app is better than an HTML5?
I do. I believe that native apps are a little more responsive. I think the user experience is better. I mean, HTML5 keeps getting better, and JavaScript programmers keep getting more and more clever, but in the end, native is always going to be faster.
I guess that makes sense because it's compiled.
Yeah, it's compiled.
On the iPhone, is it running in a virtual machine like Android is, or is it running bare to the metal?
On Objective-C, bare to the metal.
Bare to the metal.
Bare to the metal.
So it compiles down to assembly or okay. So it would be faster, of course. I guess you could optimize quite a bit on JavaScript, but it's never going to be as fast.
They're doing amazing things with JavaScript, but it is still just an interpreted scripting language.
Actually, in a related story, Adobe is putting HTML5 video support in Flash Media Server. That means if you're running, as we are, Flash Media Server, normally that encodes the video that you're watching into Flash. So most of you who are watching our live video on the web watch it in a Flash window at Justin TV or BitGravity or Ustream. But if you're watching on a Roku box, if you're watching on iOS, as many of you do, you're watching H.264. And now Flash Media Server will support that. So that means, I guess, more and more people will be making HTML5 video. I mean, why wouldn't they? Because it plays on everything, including iOS, and you want to be on iOS.
Definitely.
Yeah, there was a lot of misinformation on the web when that announcement was made. People thought Flash was actually coming to the iPhone, but it is actually a transport stream, isn't it? It's the server is actually transmitting it in a form that can be captured by iOS devices. Right. So
it's something called HLS, or HTTP Live Streaming Protocol. And in fact, I should make this announcement because it's HLS that's required, for instance, to watch us live on a Roku box or on your Popcorn Hour or your Vizio TV. And we now, all of our partners now are doing HLS. Interesting, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And we have a really, I think, high-quality HLS stream going out thanks to Ustream. We send them 1.5 megabit video, which is pretty high quality. And then their player will automatically size it according to your bandwidth. But now we are back, and I was just asking before the show, and I didn't hear, is anybody watching us live on the Roku box? Because I understand live playback on Roku is now working. So that, you know, speaking as somebody who puts out streaming video, you darn well better play on an iPhone or iPad. That's going to be half of your platform.
Well, as someone who does development, people were coming to me and they were saying, well, we really need to get this Flash stuff onto the iMac or whatever.
Right.
And Apple was sort of deprecating it. It was really Apple and Adobe going toe-to-toe. And it looks like with this announcement, Apple's won.
Yay.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think rightly so. I think Flash sucks, just to be honest. I mean, it 99% CPU, even on a desktop computer. Yeah. It crashes all the time. There have been huge security issues with Flash. And we need an open standard. It's probably not going to be H.264, but that's, I think, what you're seeing now. It'll eventually, I presume, be WebM, which is the video format that Google has thrown its weight behind. Andy, you were going to say?
I was just going to say that you got to think that this move from Adobe is simply the last step from a long chain that started with all Flash developers saying we need access to iOS devices. Where your tactic of saying, well, the iPad is a deficient device because it doesn't have Flash, we should intimidate Apple into adopting Flash, was not working. The idea of trying to stymie it as a streaming video device also was stymied. So they would have continued to press that point if they thought that they had any reasonable success at getting at it. This is their way of saying, okay, we're never going to convince Apple to do what we want them to do. We are never going to make our point that Flash should be ported to this thing. We're going to have to, and also the iPad and iOS devices are important enough devices that we are going to have to support it on our end if we're going to make sure that our developers are able to get their content on those devices. So that's definitely another point in someone's golf scorecard in Apple about, yep, we want another one. We rule.
I think there's also the impact that the last releases of all the Android tablets that have been, because a lot of them have been touted as being, they will run Flash, but virtually every review that I've seen, yes, they do run Flash, but they run it really slowly and it's buggy and, it's really not a credible solution. So not only is this going to fix the problem for iOS devices, it's going to fix the problem for Android tablets as well.
Here's a trivia question for you. What do Yale University, MIT, University of California at Berkeley, and the University of South Florida all have in common?
I can see over your shoulders, so I know it's the iTunes U.
They all have more than 20 million downloads each on iTunes U. iTunes U, this is from The Loop, Jim Dalrymple writing, loopinsight.com. iTunes U now has more than 600 million downloads since it launched in 2007. For the first couple of years of iTunes U, I think nobody knew about it. It was one of those things where if you were at a university, it was like their portal to iTunes, a special version. But half of those 600 million downloads have happened in the last year alone. So that tells me people are learning about iTunes U. And it is the best deal in education out there.
It's amazing. I mean, it really is an incredible democratization of learning.
You don't have to go to university to go to university classes.
You don't.
And not surprising that MIT, UCB, and Yale are in that 20 million group because they put a lot of their courseware on. Stanford, and not to take away from Big Nerd Ranch, which does the best training, but Stanford has their famous iOS course. They update that every year. You can go, you can watch every lecture that every Stanford kid is going to see the same thing. You're going to get you even get the course, the workbook, the problem assignments, all of that. And they update it every year. I mean, if you wanted to learn iOS and you didn't have the money to go to Big Nerd Ranch, or maybe you wanted to get a good head start, that's an amazing thing.
It really is. I mean, of course, it breaks my heart to talk about it, but it's a wonderful thing that this,
no, because there's nothing like having an instructor. And I think this is one of the things that keeps universities alive. I think what it does is redefine the mission of the university, because you can get the information. Alex Lindsay is always saying this. You make one video of the best lecture that you gave, make it and show it every year, and then don't do it ever again.
Right.
And then the university becomes about face-to-face, about talking, about colloquy. And that's what you do really well. So I don't think this hurts you at all.
Exactly. It's about creating a community where people can go and learn and creating an environment where you really get to concentrate on what you're learning, which is what the Big Nerd Ranch does.
The top two universities are Open University, I don't know what that is, and Stanford University. They both have more than 30 million downloads. And I have to think that Stanford iOS course is probably the #1 download on iTunes U. It is. Yep, 30%. Yeah, so funny. 30% of iTunes U traffic comes from iOS devices. iTunes U in 123 countries. And I think one of the big changes Apple made is now you can actually, you had to know about it before. It is actually in iTunes now. You can, if I launch iTunes, I can show you. It's, well, you know, you've probably seen it, Al. There actually is an iTunes U tab in iTunes. And if you haven't checked it out, just amazing. Courses on philosophy, literature, history. It's not all tech stuff. In fact, it's mostly not tech stuff. I just think it's really great. iTunes U. Go to the App Store, click iTunes U, and you get an idea of the big variety of stuff. #1 course right now, Oxford University, Critical Reasoning. Courses in entrepreneurship, critical reasoning for beginners. I need that. Wow. Isn't that cool? And that's all free. The nature of argument, different types of argument. Well, I would love to. This is like a rhetoric class. Are you confident you can reason clearly? Are you able to convince others of your point of view? Are you able to give plausible reasons for believing what you believe? This is great. And boy, just kudos to all these universities for putting this stuff online. They've got to feel like it threatens them a little bit to give this stuff away for free.
I'm astonished they pour so much into this effort of producing these films and making them available for free, because I would feel threatened.
Well, I'm privy a little bit to what Yale did, because I was on a committee for the digitization of Yale's resources or something like that. It was an advisory committee along with people like Mitch Kapor and Rob Glacier and a bunch of Yale alums advising the president. And the mission was, how do we get, Yale's mission is to give its stuff away. How do we get all this stuff that we have, the library, the museums, the courseware, how do we get it on the internet so that anybody can participate? So I think universities take seriously their mission to disseminate information as opposed to make money.
Right. Good
universities do anyway. And it was really cool. And one of the initiatives was this open courseware initiative that they were doing of Yale courses, and they really didn't want to just. Sometimes you'll see some of the like MIT. I think they want to put everything online, so they just have a kind of a quick and dirty video of it. Yale wanted it edited with close-ups and wide shots and all the courseware. They really wanted to make it something that was really appealing, so they picked 10 of the best courses every year to put out on there. And so I think that's worked quite well for them. But everybody's got a different point of view. To me, I think this is the promise of digital technology. Okay, I know you're NDA'd and you can't talk about anything, Aaron. Have you played with iTunes Match at all?
I can't talk about that.
Damn! Tried. Apparently, they're expanding the iTunes Match beta test for U.S. developers. Overwhelming demand caused Apple to shut the program down. The developers like it. This is the thing that lets you match your even stolen music.
Yeah, that's exactly the problem. They didn't anticipate how long it would take to write all those subpoenas backed by the IRA. Don't worry, they'll have it totally. They'll be totally up to speed in October.
Any of your songs, including music you've imported from CDs or stolen from Napster, that matches with the 18 million songs in the iTunes Store will be available in the iCloud and playback at iTunes Plus quality, 256 kilobit DRM free AAC, even if your original was 56 kilobit MP3. I want it. $25. I want it.
I just really hope they haven't underestimated the demand if that's if the developer reaction was anything to go by.
Well, it's telling them that yeah, maybe a lot of people will be doing this. It's not streaming. Oh, you can't talk about it at all. Can
Sounds awesome.
From what I read about on Apple Insider, the details I've read that have been posted publicly on
X2.co. John Pachowski, writing for All Things D, says Lion keeps Mac sales roaring. This is from NPD. Mac sales are up 22% last 2 months, putting Apple on track to sell between 4.4 and 4.6 million Macs in the quarter. That would be, if it's true, the best quarter ever again for Macintosh sales.
And this is the story that you don't hear very much about. Everyone makes such a big deal about the iOS devices, but the MacBook Air is just a wonderful, beautiful device for most people's computer needs, to be able to get on the internet, edit a document, edit a photo. It's a perfect computer.
I'm kind of I'll be honest. I was excited about the iPad. I bought, the iPad, and I bought the iPad 2, but I use it less than I thought I would because of the Air.
Yeah, the Air is it's so much
light.
faster. It has a keyboard.
This is what I carry with me.
It folds up.
Yeah.
It's durable. My wife actually is here in the studio. She ran the car over it, and her MacBook Air is just fine.
You're kidding. You ran the car over it, and it worked? And your son is going,
throwing your dirty socks on the counter again.
No, there's a little argument ensuing here between your son and your wife.
Yes, but
he's going, no, you ran over it, Mom.
She ran it over with the car.
What's your son's name?
That's Walden.
Walden, come here, Walden. And what's your other son's name?
And that's Otto.
Otto, come here, too. Come here. Walden.
Do you get this true story here?
What really happened, Walden? Talking to the mic. Talking to Dad's microphone.
So what happened is...
Come a little closer to the mic.
So we were at a hotel, and she put it... And we have a minivan.
Yeah.
And she put... And
come here,
she leaned the bag that I was in, along with the old Mac that is broken now. So then she leaned that against the wheel, and then she opened up the back door, and the door came over the wheel, so then she couldn't see it. So then she closed the door and got in the car, and she backed up, and then later investigation, we found out that the car ran over it. There was a tear in the bag.
And
that's all? It still worked?
Yes.
That's truly amazing.
But the other thing didn't.
The old MacBook did not.
The old MacBook went... The screen got broken. But it's interesting that the Air screen didn't.
I see people complimenting my Lego t-shirt.
Oh, well, let's talk about your Lego t-shirt. This is the Ascent of Man, isn't it?
Yes.
In Lego form.
Mm-hmm.
So a year ago, we went to Legoland in San Diego.
Isn't that great? I love Legoland. I'm going back there soon.
Trip.
I love Legoland. Mm-hmm. And Otto, what is your t-shirt?
Well, it's a penguin with a beatbox.
A boombox penguin.
Yeah.
Cool. Is that a statement about Linux in any way?
I don't really know.
No. Nice to meet you, Otto. Thank you for being on the show. We'll send you. It's Walden and Otto. Love those names.
Thanks.
Walden and Otto Hilligas.
Once
Mom
you named
disappeared.
The first one
I think
Walden,
she was so chagrined she's disappeared.
You can't name the next one, Mike.
Oh, she's taking a picture of them on camera. We'll send you a videotape for only $9.95. Just write for a transcript. It's so cute. So do the kids play with Lego and Lego Mindstorms?
Oh yeah, big Lego fans. Yeah, we have the Mindstorms NXT.
You know, I'm just thinking that if we put edges on this table, this would make a great Lego work table.
It would. You would.
We should have a Lego show. This week in Lego.
Volunteer.
You'd have Lego rumors.
Wouldn't that be good?
Yeah.
Lego rumors.
Lego rumors.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be good? What am I thinking? I missed the boat doing all this tech stuff. We should be doing Lego. Let us see. I'm just going to quickly run through other top stories and we can get your picks of the week. You read the Business Insider story about the company. We don't know what the company is. A very, quote, successful iPad app who talked about what it was like getting the iPad 2 ahead of time so that they could make sure that their app worked on it. He says, I was probably the 6th person to get an iPad. We had 2 of them flown out. The criteria was we had to have a room with no windows. They changed the locks on the doors. 3 developers and I were the only people allowed to go into the room. Apple needed the names and social security numbers of everybody who had access. They drilled a hole in the desk and chained the devices to the desk. But here's the part I love. They had custom wooden frames built around the iPads so that all you could see was the screen. You couldn't tell what it looked like. We could plug into them so we could code, and we could touch the screen and play with that, but we couldn't see the form factor. And this is the other good detail. They took pictures of the wood grain of the table. So if any pictures escaped into the wild, they could identify what desk it came from.
Apple's like that. It's an incredibly secretive company, and sometimes to their detriment. I'm astonished at what efforts they go through to keep things secret.
If look, you have a chance to be on the new iPad with an app that's going to launch, and they say, will you do that? You're going to say yes.
Sure.
In fact, even if I didn't have an app, I'd say, yeah.
Yeah. I'll work inside the safe if
what
I have
can I
to.
do?
Right.
Yeah, what can I do? Isn't that amazing? Have you experienced that, Aaron, yourself?
I have run into the secrecy factor. I have not actually ever gotten any secret hardware beforehand. No.
That's kind of amazing. Apple tops J.D. Power customer satisfaction survey, as they have time and time again. This is for smartphones. Apple with out of 850 points, 838, besting the number 2 by a considerable amount. HTC was 801. The industry average 788. Look at the bottom there, well below industry average. Samsung, Motorola, RIM, LG, Palm, and at the very bottom, Nokia.
But this sort of satisfaction is creating a halo effect for all the products, I think.
People love Apple. It is. There's a huge halo effect. Yeah. Not so good for RIM and Nokia, though. But, you know, I remember Steve Jobs, when he announced the iPhone, way back when, in 2007, saying how dissatisfied people were. And I remember us talking about this, Andy, how dissatisfied people were with smartphones to date. And remember, we were all saying, yeah, we all hate our BlackBerries and our other smartphones because there's so much promise there, and they just are not usable.
Yeah, Apple was, I think, was the first company that decided to treat their phone customers as human beings worthy of compassion and respect.
Well, the other phone makers were really they thought their customers were the networks, the AT&T and the Verizon,
the carriers, right?
And Apple actually treated like the customers were the people who were going to be holding the phones.
Amazing.
Yeah, the customers were network users, and so therefore the solution to almost anything was pushing another service to them. Really, the only thing that, and this sort of spoke a little bit to the lack of complexity of the phones that there were. The only thing that you could do for a customer was come in, we'll swap out your phone, we'll charge you $50, we'll extend your contract 2 years because you asked for service, and we'll send you out again. So really, I mean, that's just it's sort of like saying that we switch from an industry in which you get kicked in the butt or some other sensitive place as a result of giving them $30, $40, $50 a month to a company that will let you sit in their air conditioning, enjoy their Wi-Fi, do everything but give you a latte. And now we're surprised that because consumers are actually responding to that. I think the really big question is, will the other companies respond to that and sort of up their game? I don't think they will, because they just don't have that sort of infrastructure.
A couple of quick...
The funny thing with the iPhone as well. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
The thing with the iPhone as well that sort of opened the floodgates for me, because I used to hate mobile phones before the iPhone. I used to have just a Nokia brick phone that I used for phone calls. And the thing was, one, they were really complicated. I mean, I'm a techie, so, you know, it shouldn't really have bothered me, but they were just so hard to use. But also there was always this fear of, yes, you can get onto the internet with a phone, but it's so horrendously expensive. And that really put me off as well, because I knew that if I did get a phone that I could get onto the internet with, I'd use it more than I should do, and it run up huge bills. And then the iPhone came along, made it simple, but also the masterstroke, they made it simple to get onto the internet, and they made it cheap to get onto the internet. And then people had there was no barrier then of actually using your handheld device, not just as a phone, but as an internet communicator, as he called it in the keynote. And I think that was one of the real major breakthroughs that Apple made with the iPhone, was that they worked out that people were frightened of using the internet on their phones because of the expense, and took that barrier away.
Yeah, there's a really great basic instructions comic strip. Did one about the iPhone, where he's saying, I don't know why the iPhone people like brag about theirs being first. I had this phone called a Trio, and it too played videos, it gave me email, it surfed the web and ran apps, and did them in a way that the iPhone almost never does. Badly.
Hey, let's talk about security updates. Make sure you get your security update for your Macintosh. There was a big hack, which we've talked about at great length on security now, of a Dutch certificate authority, DigiNotar, which allowed the Iranian government, among others, to spy on Gmail users by doing a man-in-the-middle attack, posing as Google, because they were able to get a fake Google certificate. Many certificates were issued for Twitter, Google, Yahoo, everybody pretty much, Microsoft and Apple. Apple was the last company, however, to update. They just updated their certificates 2 days ago. Everybody else had done it about 10 days ago. So they have released an update, and if you haven't got that update, it's small, it's a few hundred K. You're going to want to do that just to make sure that you are not vulnerable to this. Interesting point, the update is not available for PowerPC Macs. This is what we were talking about earlier. Apple is absolutely willing to cut loose anybody who's not up to date. And the company apparently is not only not going to release this update for PowerPC Max, but they're done releasing updates for PowerPC Max, period. You have to have Snow Leopard to get the latest updates, and of course Snow Leopard does not run on PowerPC.
Yeah. There is one alternative if you don't want to update for whatever reason, like you don't have access, but if you're using the Chrome browser, Google updated Chrome so that it would reject any of those suspect certificates. One of the reasons why it was Apple was so late in doing it is because they were the OS treats itself as the ultimate authority on which certificates can be trusted and rejected. So it was not you couldn't just simply update one little thing and let that new that one little application be bulletproof against this attack. So Chrome will take care of it. Like, another leg up on Chrome as a secure browser, I think.
Yeah, I use Chrome. Firefox also updated. In fact, even Internet Explorer was updated long before Apple
And you
updated.
can't manually go through your keychain and remove the certificate.
Apparently not. There was some sort of I saw a workaround, but it was really tricky. You had to change. You could do it, but you had to change some things. There is a good article on CNET talking about what you can do if you have an older system. Run Safari in private browsing mode. Disable content management add-ons unless absolutely needed. Install click-to-flash, no-script, flash block, and other security plugins for Safari. And then it does list some manual fixes, including, I think, the certificate fix, which is, it has that fairly complicated certificate fix in Keychain. That's at the Mac Fix-It column by Topher Kessler on CNET's reviews site. So recommended you check that out if you are running a previous version of Leopard, or prior to Snow Leopard, I should say.
But you're right that the big story is PowerPC users are now second-class citizens.
Yeah, and you know,
now
they've been for a while. You can't get Lion. Lion doesn't even have Rosetta, so if you have older software like Quickens, Intuit's Quicken, you're out of luck. I mean, Apple readying a second generation of Airport Express 802.11 base station. Remember, they've updated the Wi-Fi routers. This apparently has to do with iCloud's launch coming up this fall. The update rounds out tune-ups across Apple's airport device family, including the Time Capsule and the Airport Extreme base stations. So the Express is the little one that plugs into the wall. I'm glad they still make that. I really like the Airport Express.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what's new in here, but maybe we'll find out soon when it comes out. Apple Insider has that story. Quickly, just running through a bunch of stories before we get to our picks. EFI firmware update for MacBook Airs. Gives you Thunderbolt display support. That's good. Android's app volume passes the App Store in terms of number of downloads, but iOS developers still make more money.
Right.
Not surprising, is it?
Not surprising at all.
Yeah. I think we're going to... Apparently, Apple's planning another campus after they finish the spaceship in 2015. That other campus? On Mars. No, that's a joke. Now, it is time. Now, normally we get an iOS tip from Alex Lindsay. We will get a line tip from Andy Anatko. Maybe you could think of an iOS tip for us. You have time, Aaron, or Don. Either one of you. And we also have some emails, too, at our new email address, macbreak@twit.tv. But before we do that, I do want to talk a little bit about audible.com. We all are big Audible fans. We love listening to those audiobooks on audible.com. I always listen to Andy's recommendations. He's got great ones. I'm just finishing David McCullough's fantastic The Greater Journey about Americans in Paris in the 19th century. It's you know, nobody makes history more accessible than David McCullough. I just love it. He's just amazing. But let me tell you the story on Audible, and then, Andy, if we can, we'll get another pick from you. And actually, I think this is a great pick. I'm very excited about this one. But let me just point out what Audible is. If you go to audible.com, you can find out about it. It is a 75,000 book strong audio bookstore. Pretty much anything you'd ever want, you can listen to. And one of the reasons I really love that is because I can't read like I used to. You know, I fall asleep in bed reading, but I do have a lot of time at the gym, in the car, doing housework where I could read if I could only hold a book. Audible solves that problem because I have Audible. I have a great Audible app on my iPhone and my Android phone. Of course, Audible on the iPod is fantastic, or the iPad. I actually put Audible books on my iPad all the time. And there are so many wonderful volumes to choose from. You never run out. Plus, your Audible library is always accessible to you with that Audible app, which is kind of cool. Works on Android as well, because you can go back through your library, and if there's nothing that suits you, just go back and listen to something you've downloaded in the past. I've been downloading books since 2000. I have 500 books in my library. It's a little bookshelf on my iPhone, and all of them are available. You see, Andy, The Secretariat's coming up. The Big Short, Endgame. I just finished that. That's the Bobby Fischer book. These are all books you recommended. I'm listening to Solaris at the gym. I have different books for different locales. So, Andy and Akko, give us a recommendation. This is a book you can get free, folks, by going to audible.com/MacBreak. Andy?
This one is a really good one. It just got released on Audible and on Kindle and in print today. Roger Ebert's memoir, Life Itself.
Oh, I can't wait.
I read it about 2 weeks ago. It was probably the best thing about the blackout was that I had an advanced copy of this hardcover. And so without burning the battery on my iPad, I had this hardcover, just had my light out and just reading this immensely satisfying story. It's a memoir, but it's to call it an autobiography kind of cheapens it. It's almost as if Roger Ebert is writing a fiction story about this character, fascinating character who's had an incredible life, who's spent a lot of time not only having great adventures, but thinking about what those adventures and what those experiences have meant to him over the course of his life. So if you're thinking that you're going to get a lot of opinions about movies, you will get a lot of opinions about movies. If you're going to think you're going to be hearing a lot of positive and negative things about Gene Siskel, you will get those as well. But really, it is. If you had no idea who Roger Ebert was, you would be immersed in this page after page from start to finish. I mean, I've heard so many of these stories from Roger before, and every time I read them in the book, it was just a brand new, very, very fresh and very, very engrossing read. It's some of the stuff has been. There are a few pieces that, if you're readers of his blog, you might recognize, but they've been adapted and totally rewritten. So it's not as though he's just copying, pasting things. This is a totally original, totally new work. And the audio version is. I teased this a couple of weeks ago because I heard that the presenter for this book is Edward Herman,
who read The Greater Journey.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he really is one of the. If you can choose a presenter for an audiobook, he's one of two names, maybe three names that would come up as the best ones you can get. I just downloaded it myself this morning, and I've listened to the first like 3 chapters. And even after having already read this book cover to cover, just hearing like Edward Herman, who knows exactly how to read an audiobook without making it sound stilted or overcoming the writing that you're listening to. Oh goodness, what a wonderful presentation. It's unabridged. You'll get about 13, 14 hours worth of stuff. But as I said, this is just a fascinating and engrossing story. After each chapter, it's one of those wonderful books where you might even have to just stop and just think and digest for 15 or 20 minutes about the story you've just heard and what it makes you think about your feelings about life and the experiences that you've had. Honestly, if I could keep just 5 audiobooks that I've ever downloaded, this would have to be one of them. It's just that good.
Well, here's a way to get it free. Just go to audible.com/MacBreak. You'll be signing up for the gold account. You can see I've added it to my next read. So I've got 2 books. I'm waiting, I have to tell you, Neil Stephenson's new book is coming out too. And so I'm Reamdy. And so I'm really torn. But I think I'm going to get, I'm just holding off on. I have 2 credits. I'm holding off. But I think I'll get this one. Life Itself, a memoir. As you can see, there's so many great books. These are the books that I haven't listened to yet that Annie's recommended and others that I can't wait to get and are already on my list. Audible.com/MacBreak. Look, get the first one and then worry about the rest. You're going to love it. Thank you, Audible, for your support of MacBreak Weekly. Our Lion Tip of the Week, Andy?
This is a cool hidden utility that was first at least brought to people's attention by Sub Rosa Soft. They make a whole bunch of data recovery tools. They did a lot of poking around in the system library, and they discovered that there is a super top secret Wi-Fi diagnostic utility in Lion. And if you have to look for it, If you go to if you go to the Go menu and select My Computer, you can then traverse through the System folder, the Library folder, then Core Services.
Oops, it's hard. First of all, it's hard to get to My Computer because you know. Okay, so System folder, Library folder, Core Services.
And then if you scroll down to the bottom, you'll find a standard application called Wi-Fi Diagnostics.
What the heck? Where'd that come from?
There you go.
Wow.
And it's a tech utility. It's not a consumer utility that will basically tell you. It'll basically show you what's going on in your Wi-Fi signal. The easiest thing to understand is it'll give you like a live graph of the signal to noise ratio. So if you're getting plenty of bars but it's just flaking out on you, you can see that that there's a signal bar, there's a noise bar. So long as the signal is about 20 points higher than noise, you're okay. If those two lines are kind of tracking close to each other, you know that you got a lot of interference coming from someplace else. So that's the one most consumer friendly feature you can get from this utility. The rest of it is mostly data capture and data logging. So if you want to know exactly what is, you've got an open Wi-Fi channel and you want to know exactly what the operating system is seeing and the sort of events that are occurring over the Wi-Fi network, over this Wi-Fi connection, it will log every single event and every single thing that, not all the traffic, but every single event related to the operating system and opening and closing and maintaining this. If you know what you're doing, you can also have it log all the Wi-Fi traffic. And we'll just simply, basically, you're pressing the record button. It'll record everything that it sees to a file, which then a separate utility that you'll have to find elsewhere can then sort of tear apart and show you exactly what was going on in that channel. So it's a good thing if you suspect that, gee, I think that I've got an office with like 4 or 8 different Wi-Fi base stations. I think that there's a collision between 2 of these routers that is not making itself apparent. I'm going to look at to see exactly what this Mac thinks is going on in the network. It will help you out with that sort of a thing if you know how to view this file and how to analyze it. But it will also, if you know how to use it properly, if you've got an open Wi-Fi network, it will let you see all the URLs, a lot of clear text, a lot of the traffic that's actually happening, if you know how to manipulate these files correctly. But it's a good thing to know how to get. It'll give you, with a very small amount of information on how this tool works, it will give you a quick thumbs up, thumbs down on where the source of your Wi-Fi problems is, whether it's a problem with your router, whether it's a problem with the hardware, or whether you just don't know what you're doing when it comes to networking.
Oh, I love this.
It's right there. Just launch it. It's if you want to avoid the problem, you can always just drag it into the dock and then just launch it with a click after that. But you don't have to type any sort of secret password to get there. It's just buried someplace where the consumer can't see it.
It's interesting. We had an issue because when we were first setting up the studio, we had some flapping happening on the routers, and we had to go through all sorts of hoops. If I had had this, I could have told you. Thank you, Andy. Good tip. Now, Aaron, or I guess Don, but since Aaron's sitting right here, I'll ask him first.
I have a pick and a hint all in one.
All right, let's have a pick and a hint.
So you're talking about the Airport Express, and one of the things that was really neat about it was that's where we found out about AirPlay, the ability to stream music and video over the Wi-Fi connection. And there's a set of speakers now that has this AirPlay support built in, which is the Zeppelin speakers. And I believe they're Bang & Olufsen, but Zeppelin. They sound great.
So you can AirPlay to a Zeppelin speaker?
That's right. They sound great. They look great, and they have
B&W, actually, Bowers and Wilkinson. Often confuse B&O with B&W.
Yeah.
This is one of the best speaker manufacturers in the UK.
It has a cradle where you can put your iPhone, so if you want to play it directly, you can. And then if you wanted to use AirPlay, it took me a little bit of time to figure out how to do this. So this is my hint.
Okay.
To get your music to stream over AirPlay, you double-click the home button.
Yeah.
And then you have a list of the running apps at the bottom of the screen. If you scroll to the left, you have a volume knob, and then there will be a little blue button. And you click on that, and you can choose where you want your audio to go to.
So volume knob, little blue
button, and you'll see it there, and it will say the Zeppelin speakers.
I love that.
It's really convenient. It sounds great. It looks great.
So, because I have
Not
Sonos, and the Sonos you can get AirPlay to work, but it involves using an Airport Express and complicated plugging, and this would be so much easier just to stream right to the speaker. That's great.
Yeah.
And these are such cool looking speakers, I have to say. They sound good.
They sound awesome.
Yeah. B&W makes great speakers. Someday I will have a pair of the high-end B&Ws for my home audio system. But until then, maybe a Zeppelin.
One quick thing, though, that AirPlay button will only show up if iOS can see something on the network that it can stream to.
Has to be
so
the
if you
same
don't have,
network.
Right. Basically. So if there's nothing on your network that it can see, it will just simply hide the button to keep you from confusing yourself.
Right.
But if you've got, I've been, when I pull into my driveway, it's awesome because I'm listening to my iPhone. It's in the car dock. Suddenly this thing comes up and it's pointing to, oh, do you want to use the Bluetooth speakers that are inside your car, the Bluetooth speakers in your office, the airport, the AirPlay points that are here? It's a big list will come up. So you could dock your device, but if you don't want to dock your device, you can AirPlay from it, like the tablet. That's really
from anywhere in your local area network,
really neato.
Your Wi-Fi network.
Okay, I guess I might have to get some Zeppelins then. Wow, that is really cool. So I think he's going to do this. Let's see if he finds the little blue button. Oh, they didn't find the little blue button. Oh well. Thank you, Aaron. How about Don McAllister? Your pick of the week, Don.
Pick of the week. Well, I've got a little hint. I've got a pick.
Or a hint. A pick and a hint from you too.
Yeah.
An embarrassment of riches.
A very, very quick hint on iOS devices. I don't know about you, but I end up with hundreds and hundreds of apps, and I can never find where I put them on the screen.
Right.
And especially it gets worse when you put them into folders because you're flicking past and you just can't identify the folder that the application's in. Plug it into your Mac. When you go into iTunes, just go to the list of applications that's on the right-hand side, double tap or double click on the application in the list of apps, and it will actually zoom to the screen that it's actually installed on, and you can find it from there. So that's just a quick tip on both the iPhone and the iPad.
Thank you.
Do you want my pick of the week?
Yes.
Okay. Pick of the week. I don't know if I've covered this before, but I had quite some quite complex instructions to put together for some people today. And I always, whenever I do that, I always turn to an application called Screen Steps, which is a fantastic application that allows you to create written documentation very easily. It's got a built-in screen capture utility that allows you to both capture the screen or areas of the screen and annotate it. Now, it's a bit like Skitch, but it's optimized for using with Screen Steps, so it's built into the application. And basically all you do is you write out the different steps of the process that you want people to follow. You do a screen capture, annotate it, drop it in, and then once you've got your completed document, you can even create manuals and things using this application. You can export it to HTML. You can export it to a PDF. If you pay for their online service, you can export it to their online server so people can get it from the web. But it's a really, really easy way to produce some quite complex documentation very, very quickly. And that's it's by a company called Blue Mango Learning. It's over at bluemangolearning.com, and it's Screen Steps. They do several versions. They do a desktop version, which is around $40. They do a pro version, which gives you some additional features. And then they do a work group and sort of enterprise ones as well. But it's a really, really nice application.
Very cool. Screen Steps. You've always been really good on helping me get screenshots. I remember going back to the MacMania cruise.
Oh, that's right.
Speaking of which, we are going to Australia next year.
We are indeed.
Now I know you're probably doing the European river cruise.
No, I'm not doing that one. Then the next one is Australia. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm skipping it too. So MacMania 14 is river cruise. If you go to insightcruises.com, but MacMania 15 will be November. I think it's November 2012.
November 2012. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're going to Australia for 2 weeks, and we would love you to join us. So go to insightcruises.com if you'd like to know more about that. And Don and I and Allison Sheridan from NozillaCast will be on that. Should be a lot of fun. Wally's going to be on it too. It's going to be a lot of fun.
It includes an eclipse as well.
A total solar eclipse.
They don't normally have the eclipse on this cruise, but
well, I think the Scientific American cruise they've done this before. They've had eclipse cruises, so I think they're joining them together, which is great. Andy, you should come too. We'd love you to come.
If asked, if invited, I would serve.
All right. So I'll talk.
I've always wanted. No.
I'll talk to the captain. No. I have some clout with the captain.
No clout. It is not. I've been so honored and so pleased to be invited on many cruises in the past. I anticipate that I will be invited more in the future. It's always, how many berths do they have available? What kind of instructors can teach what sort of classes? It is not. It is. I'd never expect to be invited on any of these cruises, but I've got to tell you that I am always very pleased when I am, because it's always a lot of fun.
Andy, let's get your pick of the week, and then we'll wrap this thing up.
My pick of the week, I'm a little bit late to the party on the idea of converting your iPod Nano into a
You got one, huh?
I finally got one. Well, chiefly because it often takes time for the technology to really for a cool idea to turn into an actual useful product. And so you've probably seen this sort of thing before, where you take an iPod Nano and then you just click it into this little band here, and it turns it into a wristwatch. And the reason why I really didn't like them to begin with was because the first ones that they did, that people came up with, were really pretty horrible. Where you would spend like $100 for this really big, chunky, silly, stupid looking thing that was just an unwearable object. But in the past year or so, they've actually managed to figure out how to do it correctly. I think mine is a watch from iWatchz. I'm sorry, people. iWatchz, iWatchz.com. But I think they've done it exactly right in that it clicks in just really, really simply. It's very, very secure because it doesn't feel as though it's going to fall off my wrist when I'm walking around with it. You can easily, it's thin enough that you can still put like the sleeve of your jacket around it. And best of all, you can get these things for like $20, $22 in a whole range of different colors. So that's exactly the 3 points that I needed to happen for this sort of thing before I would buy one myself. I've been wearing this for the past 2 or 3 days just to see how it feels. And actually, this has sort of become my sport watch. I have my regular analog watch that I like just for the ability to simply look at my wrist and tell the time without having to press a button and activate a screen. But when I'm in a situation where I know that like I'm cooking, I'm baking things, I need I need to be able to walk around the house and have like a stopwatch going to time something down. This is the watch that I'm wearing. So cool stuff. Let's see if it's still, because I don't know if it's still going to be operative in a month when Apple hopefully will have their iPod event. But if you still have this generation iPod Nano, it'll still be a really cool watch.
I'm going to predict that they
$22.
That they stick with the existing Nano styling. I can't see any reason to change that.
I wouldn't be surprised. I got to say that I understand this design a lot more now that I've been wearing it around my wrist as opposed to clipped to my jacket. As a matter of fact, I haven't been even really using the Nano because I'm just terrified that it'll just fall off at some point and I will not notice I've lost this $140 thing somewhere.
That's true.
But for this, it actually works really good.
I use it at the gym, and it's so small and light. I just really like it.
It's a really great fitness. It's caused me to sort of redefine this as the fitness-oriented iPod.
It is. Thank you, Andy Ihnatko. Andy is at the Chicago Sun-Times, where you'll find his great writing and reviews of all kinds of things, even sometimes Windows things. And, of course, his website, www.cwob.com. Lots of pictures there, too. He's a great photographer.
Thanks.
And it's so nice to have you once again, Andy. It's really great to have Aaron Hillegas take time off from his Northern California vacation with his wife and kids. And we want to thank Walden and Otto for coming on the show. They were great. And I didn't make your wife come on the show because it was a story about her running over the computer. So
MacBook Air,
yeah. But we do thank you for being. It's always great to have Aaron here. BigNerdRanch.com if you want to know more about.
That's right. We do training, contract programming, and books on iPhone, Android, and desktop Cocoa.
Desktop Cocoa is not as tasty as it sounds, by the way. You got my hopes up. I'm sure they're on Amazon. In fact, I'm just going to check here. And Hillegas in books.
I share
Kindle,
the last name with Clifford Hillegas, the creator of Cliff Notes.
Really?
So on
Any
Amazon,
relation?
Yeah, distant relation. There aren't that many Hillegases.
Well, he doesn't show up high on the Amazon results. You get the iOS programming. That's a great book, which you just gave me. Thank you. And then I have the original Cocoa programming.
We'll be coming out with a 4th edition of Cocoa programming for macOS 10 soon.
Oh, good.
And then very soon will be my introductory book, the Objective-C, the Big Nerd Ranch Guide.
You know what I've been doing lately is buying these books on Kindle. I don't know why, but it's just kind of nice to have them on Kindle.
No, it's great. And we've been working really hard to make the Kindle and the iBooks experience very good.
Oh, that's good to know. Okay, so it's both Kindle and iBooks. I know why I buy them on Kindle, because I'm very impatient and I want it now.
Right. Well, it's nice that the Kindle is available on all different platforms.
Right, exactly. That's the other reason I do it. Don McAllister, Screencasts Online is the place to go to see Don. It's really training, but I hate to call it training because it's so easy, it's so fun, and you do such a great job of it. And his lovely British voice just
Actually, can I mention one thing, Leo?
Yes.
Something that has only just I've started for the past 2 weeks, be the third week this week. I've started incorporating subtitles in the weekly video now, so that if anyone is deaf or hard of hearing and they want to follow along on the screencast, they can actually switch on some English captions. So they can just follow along and switch my voice off completely if they want to, and just read on screen what's actually happening on screen. So that's something new that I've brought in. Now it is. It's on the last 2 members shows, but this Friday there's going to be the standard monthly free show, and there'll be subtitles on that show as well. So and it's something I want to sort of carry on doing for the future, really. So that will help not just hard of hearing and deaf people, but also, of course, non-English speaking or people who might have difficulties following my accent, or if I talk too quickly, they can switch on the subtitles and follow along.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. Good job. Thank you.
Well, that's mine.
Really
is that me or you?
That's you.
Oh, right.
I mean, that's me. It's you on me. I'm playing it. It's like having Wallace and Gromit teach you how to use the Mac. It's just lovely. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. Always great to have you, Don. Thank you all for watching. We do the show 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. That's 1800 UTC at live.twit.tv. Actually, we've decided you can go to twit.tv and watch it. We've decided to keep live.twit.tv alive because apparently that's the best way to do it on a PS3. So we need that website for legacy users. See, unlike Apple, we're not going to cut you off. We're going to keep you going as long as you want. So live.twit.tv or just plain old twit.tv. If you do go to twit.tv, that's where you'll find the shows after the fact, and you can subscribe to them on iTunes and all the other great places podcasts are found. So you can always watch or listen anytime. Thank you for being here. We'll see you next week. Now get back to work. Break time is over.